Hi, I'm Bill Hodges. Spotlight on Government is not conflict television, but rather a safe and sane place for public servants to express their views and communicate directly with their constituents. Those who would scream and yell to rudely disrupt informational meetings have no place on our show. However, if you are one of the people who really wants to learn what's happening at all levels of government, this is the place for you. Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and I have one of my most favorite guests on the show with us today, State Senator Victor Crist, District 12. How wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you for having me here today.
This has got to have been a very, very hard year for you in the legislature.
Well, the last 36 months have been extremely challenging as the economy has begun to shrink backwards, and the demands on our governments to take a stronger role in helping to shore up the government and ensure that needed services, and as the needs for services begin to grow, it has been very challenging.
You've seen it all. You've been up there for, what, 18 years?
Almost 18 years, so I've seen the political power change. I've seen the economy go up and down like a roller coaster. I've seen issues come and go and come back again. It's been an interesting ride for the last 18 years.
Doesn't seem, that's an interesting comment. You've seen them come and go and come back again. And that's an interesting thing. It doesn't seem, as human beings, we ever learned that lesson.
Well, most of the issues and things that we work on in this process are not new. They've been around. It may have been 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but most of the things that we are discussing or we debate are not new. And unfortunately, with term limits, you've got a lot of new faces that weren't there in the days where the issue had been heavily debated, or there may have been some movement on it where it was tested. And a lot of times on some bad ideas, you see people thinking, oh, wow, this is a great idea, I think we'll run with it, and not know that, well, 15 years ago we tried it and failed. So here we go again.
Well, and really, people who watch this show on a regular basis know I don't like term limits. I think the ballot box is the term limit. If enough people don't like somebody's job that they're doing, then they vote them out. But this idea of saying, well, you've been up there X number of years now, and what it becomes is a game of shuffling seats a lot of times. So I would rather see you still have that 18 years of experience in the Senate.
Well, my wife is kind of happy that I'm coming home. We're gone.
What,
probably
for this part-time job?
Well, it's supposed to be a part-time job, but we spend about 26 to 28 weeks out of the year away from home, and when we're home, at least 2/3 of our time is spent engaged in our legislative activities. So it's far from part-time, even though we're only compensated on less than a part-time basis.
I think the very first time that I had you on the program, I asked you a question that I always ask of every legislator that comes on for the first time, is why in God's name would you take on a job like this?
Well,
the hours are horrible. The pay isn't great.
It's the love of what we do. If there's an issue or a group of issues that you have an interest in, there's no better way to get engaged in them than to climb into the arena of debate. And if you ever wanted to make a difference on a large-scale basis, there's no better way to do that than through the legislative process, because you're at the forefront of policy development.
What do you think now, with all this experience, are the heaviest burdens that we have as a state government to face in the next 5 years?
I think I'm going to surprise you when I say this, because we don't generally hear a lot of people recognize this, but it's remaining connected to the real world.
Yeah.
What happens in the political process is the political parties will go off on their tangents with their issues that position them for leadership fights. You find that a lot of your tenured elected officials become further and further disconnected to the reality of their districts as they become further and further distant from their districts and their constituents. What's important is maintaining that connection to the people you're there to serve, and understanding from the grassroots level the impact of the issues of today. Sometimes the issues may not change or they may evolve, but the impacts change.
I think that's one of the important things that I've seen you do over the years since I've known you, is you stay involved at that local level with your community area system that you have, or you actually founded a number of years ago, didn't you, the university area?
Yes, I started a nonprofit when I was in my early days in my professional career. I started an organization representing students for the improvement of housing in the area when I was in college. And it's hard to believe that 29 years has passed and I'm still president and at the forefront. But, you know, we've been focused on trying to revitalize one of the most blighted communities in the state, an area formerly known as Suquet City. We've made a lot of progress, but we've developed strategies that we're now sharing with other communities and other nonprofits across the country. So it's been a tremendous learning experience. But things like this help.
It keeps you grounded in the area that you're serving.
It helps you. Well, actually, they're not even in my district. But it keeps you grounded at the local level in local issues with local people that evolve on almost a monthly or an annual basis.
I wonder sometimes that our congressional representatives, who all live in very nice neighborhoods and they drive big cars and they've got wonderful health plans, if they ever look beyond that and see what the people are actually doing. And I think it's so important.
That's a very good question. And I think, you know, health care right now is certainly the topic on everyone's lips, and especially in the political process.
And that's one of your goals, is it not, working on this health care system with Medicaid?
Absolutely. It's not just a national issue. It's a local, it's a state, and it's a national issue. I know at the state level for years with State Representative Ed Homan, who is a medical doctor, he and I have been co-sponsoring legislation to advance access for mental health coverage. And especially during tough economic times, we find that people are now bringing into the workplace a lot of their emotional issues from the stresses of their everyday life, and it's reducing their productivity. To be able to provide for at least some of the basics in mental health coverage to be covered, it would help people to become more productive. And it will actually reduce their physical medical costs, because a lot of times physical illnesses are hindered by your mental state.
Oh, lots of times, surely. I mean, I remember in a time when I was under high stress, I couldn't lift this arm. And I thought there was a problem in my shoulder and everything. Turned out it was just stress.
Exactly. And once you're able to release that stress and become emotionally or mentally sound, you begin to develop the homeostasis that's necessary for a healthy life.
Part of it was just to understand that it wasn't an organic problem in my shoulder. It was a stress problem.
Sure,
and once I was able to do that, it went away.
Muscles were tightening as the stress levels were increasing and the nerve endings were getting pinched, and you were feeling the pain and the arm was crunching up. And I mean, that's not an unusual situation. There's a lot of people out there that find themselves in that same position.
What can we do as a people, or you do as a legislator, to move this process forward?
Education. Trying to educate my colleagues on what it is we're trying to do and why it's important to do it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of special interest groups out there, and because of the money that they have, they can hire a lot of people to walk the hallways to also educate. But the education that they're spreading isn't fully explanatory of what the situation is and the benefits are. So I'll go to a colleague, I'll explain to them why this legislation is important. Someone will come in the door behind me from the insurance industry and say, well, this is an unfunded mandate, it's going to cost millions and millions and millions of dollars, and that's not really the full truth. The truth is the costs will go up initially about 3%, and over about 24 months drop down to only 1%, but the productivity will increase 25%, and the increased earnings to a company from 25% more productivity would far offset a 1% increase in health care costs.
Oh, without a doubt. But you touch on something, the lobbyists up there. We went to Tallahassee this year and had a great time. Senator Storm's office, Audie, set us up with several tours and things. I really want to thank Audie for taking that and doing it for us. But it was amazing to me how many people were wandering around. I mean, just it was just a mass of humanity in the State House. And you wondered how many of them were legislators. Of course, you wear the little pins, but there were a lot of people in suits, and I suspected many of them were lobbyists.
Well, you know, they're referred to as slick shoes. Slick shoes. You know, the lobbyists all have their Cole Haans and their expensive suits and shoes, but there is a place for them. I mean, in a way, they are educated.
I like to see them identified with their own little pin that says lobbyist on it or something.
You know, that's not a bad idea. For those of us that are in the process, we pretty much know who they are, but you know, for the newcomers, they haven't learned yet. But there are two kinds of lobbyists. You have what you call lay lobbyists, which are the volunteers, like PTA members, or someone that's working in the nursing industry, a nurse that would come up.
Who just wants to come up and say, hey, I want to see a change here.
Exactly, or a law enforcement officer. I mean, people can either be what you call lay lobbyists, which is a volunteer representing their interest in an issue, or a professional slick shoe, which is paid.
Now, they don't have to register. If you're just going up there to lobby a cause that it's near and dear to your heart, you don't have to be.
Oh, no.
You don't have to do that.
No, you don't. And you know, just the other day, there was a 97-year-old lady that got up in front of the county commission to talk about the reason why they should fund the completion of North 22nd Street. That's the economic development Main Street project in the university area. And they had $9 million in the budget to complete that project, and it got swept. And she got a standing ovation because she said, I'm 97, soon to be 98. I live here. I've been here a long, long time. And she was very, very convincing. I first met her 18 years ago, and you know, both Gertrude and a lady named Barbara Muller.
She's just a girl of 80.
Well, she was younger, but still a senior. And we referred to them in the legislature as the milk and cookie ladies because they would come around and their business card was attached to a cookie.
Really?
And they would bake before they would come up there. And let me tell you, you know, towards the end of the day when you skipped lunch and you need a little extra energy, that cookie was valuable.
The cookie people.
But, you know, it's lobbyists like that. They're just regular people that come up there and work the issues.
Now, I think that's great.
Is the best part of this process.
I really like that, where somebody cares enough to go up there on their own and do it. I'm not real fond of some of these, as you call, slick shoes, because they're hired guns for the highest pay.
Every industry has them, though.
Yeah.
You know, whether it be the school teachers, the principals, the doctors, the lawyers,
nice
the insurance, or the oil companies. Sooner or later, they all hire a paid lobbyist for their cause, and you know, it can be challenging.
Let's talk about the justice system,
okay?
Which you're deeply involved with. You're kind of the top guy in the legislature when it comes to the justice system. Am I saying that appropriately?
I'm the lead in the Senate on civil, criminal justice, the courts, and public safety.
Now, a while back, there were some problems. The courts always feel like they are gods and they want to be treated that way. And when somebody steps in and makes them do something, they're not excited about it. And you made them do some things that caused the courts to be a little bit upset with you a while back.
Well, you know, I chair the budget. I'm responsible for ensuring that we invest the taxpayers' dollars wisely. And as money is tighter and tighter and tighter, we've had to be more and more and more cautious that we were maximizing impact. And, you know, several years ago, I asked each of the entities that we funded to take a closer look at how they could be more efficient. And whether it's adopting contemporary technologies or refitting their windows or re-engineering the matrix of their operations and leadership so that they can do more with less, we wanted them to look at this. And the courts, I mean, they were basically founded on the precedents of yesterday, and they're most resistant to change, and they didn't want to do a self-audit. So I went ahead and ordered one, and that was not a popular decision. And they felt like it was going to be a witch hunt and it was going to be used against them. Now, a year later, they have learned that the purpose of it was to provide me with the ammunition I needed to go after the resources, to keep the doors of the courts open, and to fully fund access to justice. And, you know, we're friends now because they've realized that my motives were honorable ones. And that's what this process is about, you know. I mean, it's about trying to do the best you can with the least amount of resources. And sometimes the groups that are being affected are a little overly reactive on the initial onset. And I think the courts now are pretty satisfied with what we were able to do for them in the past year.
I think probably any time, I don't care what agency or company it is, when you have an outsider come in and do an audit, you're not expecting something good to come out of it.
Especially when the audit is based not just on numbers, but on performance. So
let's talk about the prison system a little bit. I'm concerned. I just had Ron Hartley and Joe Burt from the Sheriff's Department on my last program, and we got talking about that a little bit. We, as the United States, have more people per capita in prison than any other country in the world. Even communist China, per capita, doesn't have more people in prisons than we do, and we keep talking about them being a prison society. What are we going to do? We can't keep putting people in prison. We can't keep building prisons. Costs somewhere in the neighborhood, depending on who you talk to, $35 to $47 or more $1,000 per year to keep somebody in jail. Lord, I could send them to the Holiday Inn for less money than that. What are we going to do? What is the legislators going to do?
Well, over the last few years, we've been studying what our options are and have discovered that it is more cost effective to early assess and to work with the court system to direct an individual to either a program or a service up front as part of the correction process so that we can close the door of recidivism. When you look at the criminal population, 90% of those who get caught up in it can be rehabilitated, and 10% generally can't. If we can identify that 10% up front, get them out of the way, and then focus on what areas do we begin rehabilitation on that 90%, then we can steer them into a productive lifestyle when they're rechanneled back into society. Case in point, are they there because of mental illness? If they are, why lock them up? That doesn't fix the problem.
I'm with you.
Are they there for substance abuse? If they are, why lock them up? That doesn't fix the problem. We may have to temporarily keep them off the streets, but let's make sure that they're in a program where we are getting them off of their substance abuse, or we're getting them into a program or a service where we're helping them to become literate and learn a trade. But I think, we owe the public at least the level of due diligence to ensure that when these people go back into the main street of society, that they're capable of being a productive citizen.
That makes so much sense, but we're not doing anything, it doesn't seem to me, Senator Crist, we're doing anything in that direction. I wrote, when I was in Ohio, we did a program like this, and I had a fellow on, he said, you got some ideas, write me. But nothing ever happened, and very simply, what I said was the long-termers that are in jail right now, many of them are fairly bright, and they could learn something to teach. You give them their own cell and a little extra dinner along the way, and they teach. Everybody else has to go to class. None of this sitting out there doing barbells. And if you want good time, it means you've progressed in your testing. But so many of these people get out of jail, and they can't read, they can't write, they can't count. And where do they go? They've got a prison record, so nobody wants to hire them.
They go back in.
Yeah, they go back in.
That's the revolving door. But, I got good news for you. Last year and again this year, we began to change that process. For the first time in the 18 years I've been up there, we did not add more money to the budget or to build additional new prison beds. We're living with the numbers and the new beds that have been channeled to come online from years past. And the reason we were able to do that is because we jump-started a new drug court system in the state of Florida. We're now the national model for a drug court system.
Really?
Yes.
How does it work?
Well, in essence, if you're going into the system because of a substance abuse issue, you'll face a judge and go through a court system that will be specialized in focusing on that area and will be able to work with, let's say, sentencing you to a program or a service that would actually rehabilitate you so that you go back on the street clean and productive. So what we're trying to do now is we're beginning that process of working with individuals right up front to make sure that we have appropriate sentencing. The area that we're going to be advancing, that we're trying to advance, is dealing with the mental health. There was a study that we funded that through the court system 3 years ago that clearly showed that there was a significant number of inmates in the system with mental illness, but there was a significant lack of resources to help them overcome it. So that is one of the areas that we will be pioneering over the years to come, and I've already got that ball rolling. And colleagues that will be following me already see the value in keeping that issue moving forward. So here in Florida, we are pioneering, and we are avant-garde in comparison to other states throughout the country in the area of dealing with justice.
But like I said, the program that I suggested really isn't going to cost the state any money, speak of, besides giving a guy a private cell for teaching.
Well, anything we can do to reduce the costs in corrections and improve the skill sets and the safety of those leaving the process, the more we can close that revolving door and begin to channel those dollars towards education or economic development or health care services or other areas of the budget that the public is demanding that we, the state, and even local governments address. I mean, right now, health care is the largest portion of our state budget. Health and Human Services has now superseded education. It's the largest portion of our budget.
I was talking with a parole officer, and he was telling me, I can't use his name because he said, the system's broken. He said, I can't possibly cover all the people I've got. Just can't do it. And then you start seeing these sex offenders and so forth slipping between the cracks. And what, in Miami there, they all live under one bridge, at least you can count them. You know, and that's kind of atrocious too. We should either do something or rehabilitate or something on that. But it just seems that there's so many problems. We can't afford to lose you out of the legislature.
Well, you know, I'm a workaholic. I love to work, and it has caused me to wait until my older years to get married. But 4 years ago, I finally got married for the first time, and I have a wonderful wife. She's younger, and she wants to start a family. So she wants me to come home.
Oh,
so
gee, how selfish of her.
Well, you know, I'm looking forward to coming home.
What is her name, by the way?
Angela Severino Crist. And my wife and I are two different political parties and often have two different campaign signs in the yard. But, you know, we both want to start a family. So I'm going to be coming home in a year. We're going to be starting a family. I'm going to be a dad and begin to have a more normal life. I do want to stay active.
Are you going to stay in politics? And having a normal life and staying in politics, isn't that kind of diametrically opposed?
Well, you know, there's going to be a balance there. We have discussed it, and we both agree that it's a passion that fits me well, and I love, you know, public service and enjoy the process.
I will tell you that you're either blessed or extremely intelligent to have Eric working with you, because he is one of the best of the legislative aides that I've dealt with. He's just an outstanding young man.
Thank you. Eric handles the appropriations issues and my schedule, but I have Jennifer.
Oh, Jennifer's wonderful too. I deal more with Eric than I do with Jennifer, but
Jennifer is I'm very blessed. I've got 3 outstanding aides, and in the Senate we have 3 aides, and Eric handles appropriations and my schedule, which is tough. I've got Jennifer, who handles the policies and debate sheets, which can also be very tough. And I have Jeffrey, who handles constituent service, and he's the connection with the community. And, you know, Jeffrey he's been in and out of my office over the years. You know, I met him, he was a reporter when I first ran in '92. And I had an opening in my office a year later, and I sent out a press release. I was looking for resumes, and he sent one in. And I says, do I hire a reporter? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? So I took a chance and brought him in. And I got to tell you, it was a great decision.
I think you're probably a good boss, too. You know, I know maybe it's a little early and maybe you don't want to even talk about this at this moment in time, but I'm really hopeful that you will stay in the public eye when you leave office as senator. And I really would love to see you in a county-wide or county office, such as the county commissioners. Have you given that some thought?
I have. I've discussed it with my wife and my family and my friends, because in public service, it affects everyone around.
It's an 80-hour week. I don't care how you slice it.
Plus, you're living in a fishbowl, and it does. It affects the family and the friends, the business, the employer. And last December, I made the decision that I would run for the county commission.
Wonderful.
And, but it was kind of like, which seat. We had to take a look at, where the openings were. And I thought countywide, but Ken Hagan, who's there now, decided he was going to run for the countywide seat. So I'd live in District 2, which is a single-member district, and that's the seat I'm going to run for. And the constituents that are there, I've worked with them for 18 years because they're in the middle of my Senate seat. I understand the issues. Many of those issues are ones I've been working on for, over a decade. And it would allow me the opportunity to continue the fight to get some of the things done that I've been trying to get done that still are undone. So,
well, somebody once said all the politics are local.
Oh, yes.
And so coming back, you were talking before about staying grounded to the people.
Yes.
Maybe coming back and facing these county issues from a county commissioner standpoint is a very good thing.
I would bring a different perspective, having served 18 years at the state level. And, if the county and the state had a better understanding of each other's needs and how they operate, it would foster a stronger working relationship. And there's been a strain there between counties and state.
Oh, I betcha. Each one's got their own little bailiwick of what they've got in their pot of money.
Well, when you're the freshman, whether it's at the state level, the federal level, or the county or city level, you got to work on the committees and the assignments they give you. So I understand I'll be starting all over again on, with probably the least desirable of committees or assignments. But all of it is important. All of it needs to be given equal attention. And if given that opportunity, I'll put 100% in.
Now, I don't have to be even. This isn't supposed to be a news show. This is my opinion. This is what I like to do. This is the end of the show, though. We've run out of time again. I want you to come back.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to having you in the spring and have you come back and maybe give us an update on what's going on. I know the legislative season is very, very difficult. Ladies and gentlemen, State Senator Victor Crist, great guy. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often, because you are. We'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And again, Senator Crist, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's it. You've just finished watching Spotlight on Government. Each month, we bring you elected officials and others who impact upon your life. We hope that by bringing them to you in a non-threatening environment, you will get to know them better than you would by watching 30-second sound bites provided by commercial television. As moderator of this program, it is not my intention to tell you what to think or how to think, as do the talking heads on MSN and Fox News. What we hope you'll find here is information needed to make up your own mind on the subjects of the day. Programs on this website are delayed by about 30 days to allow airing cycles. To watch these programs when they're broadcast on Tampa Bay Community Network, simply go to Bright House or Verizon on the channels and times shown. No matter how you watch Spotlight on Government, we're glad you were here. Thank you for your support.